Sweet the whispers in your ear whenever ember wanders near.
The video that he put out like 2 days ago. He did a potato can video called "Who Really Controls the Internet." Yeah, that it's pretty good. Okay, we'll take a look. It's whenever Asmund does a potato cam video, it's usually pretty interesting what he has to say. So let's see what it is. A little late to the party on this one. It was 2 days ago, but yeah, it's like if he's doing a potato cam video, it's usually because he has something important to say, not on stream. So yeah, let's see what he's got to say about this.
Hi, today I want to talk to you all about wokeness and where I think it came from. So, a lot of people don't really understand how all these things came together and how we experience probably the highest and the biggest level of censorship that at least I've experienced in my lifetime between the years of, I would say, 2014 and 2024. Now,
Yeah.
what I find to be the most ironic about this is that the main thesis of what I'm going to be talking about is the way that you created the unholy matrimony, the unholy trinity between ideologically captured media, bad faith capitalism, and mentally ill activism. And
Yes.
these things put together all created an apparatus that I want to construct and then deconstruct and talk to you all about how it actually maintained power and how it manifested and projected that power throughout the entire internet. So fundamentally, what I find to be the most ironic about all of this is that the main people that are the biggest social justice warriors, the biggest woke people,
Ahem. Asmongold, SJRs. They are not warriors. They're retards. We need to get this right. I swear to God, I will make this. I will make this into the mainstream zeitgeist. They are SJRs. Do not give them the dignity of referencing them as being warriors, because they're not. Moving on.
the people that care so much about all of these different issues, almost every single one of them hate capitalism. But in an ironic sense, none of their ideology would have ever been tolerated by anybody.
Yeah, mods, can you change my category back to just Sally, please? I'm going to disagree with Asmund on there, where he says that they hate capitalism. I'm going to actually disagree with that. They don't hate capitalism. What they hate is that capitalism has not specifically enriched them. That's what they hate. They are actually just fine with capitalism. They've been fine with capitalism for decades. What they hate is the fact that capitalism has not benefited them. It has benefited the super rich or the ultra rich. And they are still working their 9 to 5, getting by day to day, and they're not living La Vida Loca like the rich are, and that pisses them off. And then, so they see people that have done well in life, that have made money, that have been able to live a good and wealthy lifestyle. They see them as the epitome of capitalism, and so they think that that is all that capitalism is. They think all that capitalism is making rich people rich so they can, so they can step on the poor, which is not there's a kernel of truth in there, but it is not the overarching truth. And so what they're wanting is they're wanting the idealized concept of socialism. Key word there being idealized is in their minds. They have been like twisted, their brains have been twisted, corrupted, and brainwashed into thinking that socialism is where basically everybody gets all the free shit that they want, and you're sticking it to the rich, the super rich, and the ultra rich. And the super rich and the ultra rich are going to pay for everything for everybody, and everybody's going to be able to live in the, in the lap of luxury and have everything that they pay, everything paid for them, which is not actually what happens. And they came to this conclusion because they are because they are angry that while people like, Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, Trump, but Asmongold, basically all these individuals that have amassed wealth and have their own companies and basically can have anything that they want. Money is no object. While these people are working there, while they're putting the fries in the bag, they hate the fact that these people exist, and they're basically going, "Why not me? I deserve it. I work hard, so I deserve to be wealthy." So that is basically where it boils down to, is they don't hate capitalism. They just hate the fact that they are not able to be a substantive beneficiary of capitalism. And that's literally it. Like, Hassan pretends to hate capitalism. She doesn't. He loves capitalism because capitalism is the reason why he is a literal millionaire. It is why he is able to live in a literal mansion. So let's not fuck with the pretending here of people that hate capitalism. They don't. They really don't. They're spoiled brats that think everything should just be given them on a silver platter because their feelings tell them that they've earned it. And that's really it. And I'm going around in circles, so I'm going to continue on.
If capitalism wasn't there, that was insulating it from criticism. And I want to talk about why that happened. So we're going to go back, we're going to go way back to 2010 to 2014. It depends on how you want to define it, but that's where I would really start at the beginning. So that's whenever you started seeing terms of service on websites. That's whenever you started seeing words that you couldn't say. That's whenever, instead of telling people, if you don't like it, don't look at it, instead of that, you decided to instead tell people, if you don't like it, then nobody can look at it. Why did these things change? What happened?
Yeah. You saying like started between, I'd say that kicked off in 2014. He said like between 2010 2014. It's 2014. It's like it was there in whispers maybe back in 2010. Honestly, a lot of the problems we can ascribe a lot of the problems to like really kicking off. Like they were there, like, in the back, like whispers in the background. They started to become shoutings. Like, you started to actually see them in, like, it started in 2014. It kicked the fuck off in 2015. No, not Gamergate. No, it wasn't Gamergate. Gamergate came and went, and people, for the most part, were just like, fuck off. No, the whispers started in 2014. The shouting began in 2015. What happened in 2014 and 2015? Something of significance happened in those 2 years. Anybody remember what those might be? We were in a recession in 2010. Yeah, but that's not what sparked this. 2014, Donald Trump said he was thinking about making a run for office. 2015, he made his announcement for candidacy for presidency. That's what started all this. That's what's because especially with the way that he presented himself, the way he is presenting himself in the media is what kicked all of this off. That was the spark that ignited all of this. Because when he did this and people were vehemently opposing him, and as he progressed, he was like gaining popularity. He was gaining the nomination. And then in 2016, he won the presidency and so on and so forth. That is what kicked all of this off. That is what got the SJRs shifting from SJW to SJR. And it's what basically got the ball rolling. It's when it's when all of the emotions about everything got ratcheted up to 11. When he was talking about running and then announced his candidacy, all of the emotions ratcheted up to 11 and they never came down. So like 2010, no. I mean, you're always there. There were nuggets of it there. There's nuggets of this all throughout human history, but you didn't actually see this start really rearing its head until 2014 and then into 2015. That's when everybody just started losing their shit, and all of the SJR DEI went into hyperdrive because of direct opposition to him running. Everything you've seen in terms of the screeching SJRs, DEI, bridge, all of that you can see a direct correlation of it being done in direct, stark opposition of Trump. That's what kicked all of this off. Is you had a select group of high influence people that hated Trump, that absolutely hated him, and then him getting the candidacy and then him getting the election was basically all it took for them to basically kick off their war, effectively speaking. And that's what and that's when everything all just blew up. Yeah, you start with the mainstream media. You have business people that hated him because of his attitude and the things they said and saw. But all of that is what caused all of this to blow up. 2014 into 2015.
Why was it that a place like Reddit, for example, that was the open bastion of free speech, suddenly changed and then allowed itself to be completely colonized by a small manufactured minority of people and a manufactured consensus of ideas that is really not representative of their user base or really of anybody in real life either? How did this happen? And I'll tell you exactly.
Well, you say it was a combination of Trump and BLM. Trump was the kickoff because BLM remind me, what year did BLM start rioting? That was 2016, was it not? Was it am I correct on my dates that it was 2016? Or it was 2020. God, I'm way off on my freaking dates. Yeah. So it was 2020 with BLM. BLM, I don't think it was a combination of Trump and BLM. I think BLM occurred because of Trump. I think because Trump had already been in office for some time, and BLM kicked off as a direct response of that, because of Trump's because of his first term. So that's kind of the Ferguson riots. The Ferguson riots, now that may have been in correlation with him basically talking about running. And again, that's what I said. 2014 is when we started hearing the whispers. BLM started with Trayvon. Well, yeah, BLM started with Trayvon, but BLM was basically just annoying with Trayvon. BLM became effectively speaking, almost a terrorist organization in 2020. That's what BLM ticked off. There's always these, for fuck's sake, Black Panthers have been around since the 60s. So it's basically quote unquote Black rights organizations have always been around. It was in 2020 or even in 2014 with Ferguson, although Ferguson was kind of a one and done thing. Ferguson, I don't ascribe to this because with Ferguson, you could also ascribe the same thing to the LA riots with, oh God, I can't remember his name. Oh my God, I cannot believe I'm forgetting his name. Yes, Rodney King. Thank you. I cannot believe I forgot his name. Yeah, the Ferguson thing was basically another Rodney King thing. It was a one and done of, a pressure cooker just reaching the boiling point, and it was honestly one and done. The George Floyd is where BLM said, we're going to basically take advantage of the social zeitgeist in its current form because of how the left went so extreme from 2026 to 2024. The people of BLM said, oh, we can use this. And they did. And they've been using it ever since. So that's my feeling on that.
How it happened. It's actually very simple. It happened because of money. So what happened between 2010 and 2014? You started getting a lot of ads. You started getting a lot of advertisements. You started getting a lot of, ways that these companies and these websites were basically making money. And if you look at this on the stock market for any of these different companies, this is very clearly the growth period of their business. This is whenever they started really making a lot of money. Because a lot of people falsely attribute the woke era to something that was happening during COVID, which I think was the fever pitch, but it wasn't the entire disease.
No,
the
it wasn't.
disease actually started between 2010 and 2014, and it was manifested by advertising and then companies wanting to maintain that advertising money in order to maintain to maintain the advertisements to continue making more money. So what happened?
Well, COVID was basically taking the metaphorical pressure cooker and putting it into a small container and then letting it explode. That's because everybody was locked in their homes. They couldn't get everywhere. And also with COVID, that's when streaming blew up. COVID is when the concept of the streamer just fucking blew up in a big way. You saw all sorts of new streamers coming on the scene. The video becoming a streamer or a content creator became very popular. A lot of people were able to generate new careers from it. VTubers took off. Yeah, that's when that took off. But at the same time, with 2020, you had a bunch of people on stream that were able to espouse politics, like Hassan, like Destiny, like Nick Fuentes, like all of these political streamers, and they had a very captive audience because what the fuck was everybody supposed to do when they were all locked out? They had nothing to do, they were bored, so they would sit and watch these political streamers for hours on end because they would quote unquote learn about politics in a way that was more entertaining than your standard news media. Is you would have these streamers that were talking to their audiences in more or less plain English. They were actually talking directly to the people in their chat versus just someone in the news media speaking to a camera and not actually speaking to anyone directly. Whereas a streamer is talking to their audience directly for the most part. Some ignore them, but most streamers, they will actually, when they are talking on stream, they're talking, but they're also talking to you, the viewer. Because if you are viewing, you're in chat, you're able to express your opinions. The streamer can pick up on that. They can read your comments. They can do a back and forth with you, or they may agree with you and say, I didn't think of it that way, and so on and so forth. So that is what COVID did in terms of blowing things up. They took that, COVID took that pressure cooker of everybody just feeling, the last 4 years of feeling sick and disgusted about literally fucking everything. They took that pressure cooker and sealed it into another container where all this existed and just let it fucking explode. And so that's why we saw the explosion of the third left, right, etc. political commentary, is because it was an explosion in a tightly confined area that you couldn't escape from.
And is that you had these activists and people that are working inside of media companies, and then the media companies are running smear campaigns. They're talking about how,
yes,
this website is allowing, racism or dangerous language or
yes,
X or Y thing. And we're not even talking about the COVID era, by the way. Keep this in mind. This is back in the, Gamergate and even pre-Gamergate era. This is when these things were happening. So what really was going on,
which, by the way, the media was making that commentary about how could these websites have this stuff? This is inappropriate. Talking about, this is racist. Started talking about, black people are being disenfranchised. Like, look at mainstream media. You cannot see a single, during BD, from about mid 2010s up through 2020, you could not see any mainstream news story be reported on without them in the mainstream media, without them making it about race in some way. Literally every single news story, they had a bent to it of how is this quote disproportionately affecting black and brown people. That was literally every story, no matter what they were talking about. How is this affecting black and brown people? This is disenfranchising ethnic minorities. Every single one. And that did start about the mid 2010s up through 2020 is when they really started to do that. And they were basically trying to incite this, racial divide and and constantly saying, everything is against ethnic minorities. Everything is against black people. Everything is against brown people. Everything is disproportionate against that. It's where the whole thing of the voting came into place, where the whole concept of IDs for voting, where they were basically saying during the 2026 election, if memory serves, the media was all constantly going on and on about how, the concept of voting is disproportionately affecting poor black communities because they need to have an ID. Which, by the way, again, I'll remind you, you don't need to actually get a license. That is not the only ID. You can literally get a state ID for free in most states. You just literally need to get your lazy ass to the DMV and get a state ID. And that's literally all you need. There was no disproportionately affecting poor black communities. It's that they didn't want to have ID. They chose to not want to have ID. They were, for whatever reason, I'm not going to postulate on what the reasons might be because could be several reasons. But that was what they were pushing over and over and over again during that time period. And it was setting the stage for basically what we are seeing now today with what happened with Carmelo Anthony and the responses that have come out of that. It was kind of setting the stage to all of that.
Is that they kept making articles and they kept saying that, like, oh, this website is allowing X, Y, and Z content and it's horrible that this is happening. Then there was a harassment and a advocacy campaign that pushed the advertisers that were advertising on the website that was basically egged on by these ideologically captured media apparatuses.
Actually, what I was going to say, and I kind of went off a tangent, I forgot to mention this. He's saying ideologically captured media companies. No, it was the media companies were being told to do this by the people that own them. It's like we've seen the stories about, like, what was it, the Capital Media Group or what was it? Sinclair, the Sinclair Media Group. How this is like a billion trillion dollar company that owns like a fuck ton of mainstream news stations across multiple states, and they would literally push agenda that these news agencies would have to broadcast verbatim. There was a whole what's the word I'm looking for? Compilation. There was an entire compilation of just a fraction of the Sinclair Media Studios, where basically every single one of their anchors were reading off the same fucking script about this is terrible for Americans, this is going to hurt our children, or something like that. It was some bullshit, leftist ideology talking point that all of them read verbatim. Because they're corporate overlords. Yeah, the danger to our democracy thing. Yeah. They read it all verbatim because their corporate overlords said, you're going to read this. And that also comes from the ads, because just like streaming, news media is beholden to ad revenue. If the news media does not get their ad revenue, they don't have a station, they don't have a news station, they don't have a business. So they are ideologically captured by the people that are buying ad space on their platforms. And so the people that are buying the ad space on their platforms are basically politically and sociologically and ideologically influencing or telling these news media, this is what you're going to talk about, this is the bent that you're going to go, and if you don't do it, we're going to take our millions upon tens or hundreds of millions of dollars in ad space that we're paying you, and we're going to fuck off elsewhere. And that is more, they were not ideologically captured, they were monetarily captured with an ideological debt.
And individuals too, to put pressure on these companies, because companies, you have to admit, you have to understand, I mean, are they're not moral, they're not immoral, they're
Correct.
amoral. If Hitler won World War II, most of these companies would be selling swastikas. And it's important to always remember that. When a company thinks that your social cause or your social opinion is the correct social opinion, the odds are it's because they think they can make money off of you if they tell you that. That's the only reason. Why do you think they all care about Pride? Well, it's because they can sell something with a rainbow on it. So anyway, these companies...
Which is also why a lot of companies are stopping selling Pride merch. You may have noticed there is a significant decline of Pride merch in stores in the last year, because people aren't buying it. People are fucking off with Pride. People are recognizing Pride as the hate organization that it has become. It wasn't always. Pride didn't start off that way, but in the last several years, it has become an organization of hate, intolerance, and violence. And people are recognizing that. So they're not buying the Pride shit anymore, and they're actually boycotting companies that are selling the Pride stuff, which is what they did last year. We saw that with Target. We saw that with Bud Light. and there was a massive boycott that like cost them hundreds of millions of dollars, and they realized, oh, we actually like money. We want to make more money, so let's not sell the Pride stuff anymore. And if you've noticed this year, we talked about this before. We, you know, the gaming companies, a lot of them have stopped putting the Pride advertisement stuff on their Twitter profiles. The stores, a lot of them have stopped selling the Pride merchandise, and they're because they want to make money, and they've realized that it's like I always say, you want to make a change, you hit them in the fucking wallet. And people did. People hit Target, they hit Bud Light in the wallet. The gaming companies, they hit them in the wallet by saying, you want to support the Pride, we're not going to monetarily support you. And they made the change. They made the change of, okay, we're not going to sell the bullshit Pride stuff anymore. And people like Bud Light's still feeling it though, but Target now is doing fine. By the game company, some of the game studios and game companies that are not going through with Pride, they're doing okay now because they like making money. That's the only thing that companies care about. That is literally it. They care about what their bank balance looks like. They care about if their shareholders are happy. Anything else means precisely dick.
Care about money. And so what happened is that the media apparatus...
Jaguar. Yeah, look what happened to Jaguar. Jaguar went headlong into the SJR mentality, and what happened? It bottomed out. They did that completely woke DEI horror show of an advertisement for their ugly ass new car, and the bottom fell off from under them, and they're done. Jaguar is now done. That's how this works. You vote with your wallet. And the companies will either go, okay, we need to make a change, or the company will go under. Make your choice.
Anyway, these companies care about money. And so what happened is that the media apparatus created and manufactured a false consensus that everybody was upset and angry about these types of behaviors, right? Everybody was upset about this. People were super mad. And now these companies have to take action. They have to do something. They have to act. And this is what's happening also, by the way, it happened inside of mainstream media as well. You saw different shows that were, pushing ideologies that were not necessarily what people accepted in terms of, culturally acceptable. And I think that really, if you take a step back, think about the term brand friendly. Think about that term, brand friendly. What does brand friendly almost always mean? That means at least something that is either agnostic to politics or leftist leaning. And I think that really kind of gives away the game, doesn't it? Because fundamentally, every single one of these companies always kowtows to this.
Well, okay, something to make a point of note here. The companies that are wanting to be brand friendly are making products for entertainment for people that are left-leaning. The companies that are making things for right-leaning people don't fucking care. So it's like with that's something to keep in mind when you talk when he's talking about things being brand friendly. Is the brand itself is already left-leaning, and so they're trying to cater to their economic demographic, because if they piss off their economic demographic, the other side's probably not going to buy shit from them. So that's something to be clear about that, because you don't see gun manufacturers that are worried about brand friendly advertising for their products. You don't see tobacco companies or most alcohol companies being worried about things being brand friendly. Why? Because the left is not their target demographic. They're not the ones buying their products. That's something to keep in mind.
Group of people. Now, why did they do that? Is it because they're the majority? Well, if Donald Trump won the election, it seems like that's not the case. So why actually do they get listened to? It's actually extremely simple. It's because these people are very good at institutional capture, and they've done an incredibly good job at it, whether it's businesses, whether it's HR departments, whether it's media companies, or whether it's other forms of NGOs, or just different media apparatuses that are third party that exist on the internet, or even individuals that are just politically minded that want to advocate for something. And I think that they're very strategic and they're very effective, and they have been. And it took a long long time for people to identify this and then begin to develop countermeasures like what we have now. So anyway, all of these people have basically created this entire permission structure around language. And the permission structure around language enabled people to accept that certain things were just simply not allowed to be said. And this manufactured the ideology of being brand friendly. This could not have happened without mainstream big companies enforcing this ideology by the rule of money. If there was no money involved in any of these companies, then none of these companies would have changed. You used to be able to say the N-word on Twitch. You used to be able to say the F-word on Twitch. Do you want to know what changed? Advertisers changed. What do you think the probability is that every single company suddenly grew a conscience and wanted to make all of these different stores against the rules at, ironically, the same time that they all got a bunch of money for advertising? What do you think the odds of that are? Well, I'd say what the odds are. It's 0. They're doing it for the advertising money. That's always what they were doing it for. So why is it that these companies are listening to these people? Well, this is the two-part thing of...
No. It's not that you can't say fuck. I say fuck all the goddamn time. No, it's the other F word that is referencing a bundle of sticks. That is the F word that is being referenced there.
Of identity capture and just basically capture in general. So you have the media companies that have been taken over by these people who want to weaponize the media companies' influence in order to push their ideology. This is relatively obvious. I think that we all know this is what happens. But then the second thing is that people that work inside of the actual companies themselves also have some of these ideologies, and they create an alarmism around not making these people happy. Now, I think that you've started to realize that usually whenever these people are upset, it's not a boycott, it's a goycott. Nobody cares, it doesn't matter, and everybody that's angry and upset about it, there's really no effect it really has. So if you upset these people, you know, you saw this with how many video games where it's like, okay, well, you know, like, well, we're gonna own the chuds, and then nobody owns the game. And so that's really not a good way to keep your job, is it? Sure seems that way. Look at Bungie. So anyway,
look at Xbox. Look at Bungie, look at Xbox, look at BioWare. Look at Ubisoft, look at all of these companies, both big and small. There's a whole shit ton of small companies that did this too, that they put out a game for the woke that was laden with DEI, that was buddy with Sweet Baby Inc. I mean, look at Rockstar, or Rocksteady, not Rockstar, Rocksteady. Look at Rocksteady. Look at all of these games, not Bethesda. Bethesda didn't go woke. Bethesda just doesn't know what the fuck they're doing, but that's a whole different thing. Well, Rockstar too, we haven't seen the new, I'm not ready to say Rockstar yet. Rocksteady, absolutely. But a lot of these game dev studios, big and small, they are putting out this woke crap. And then nobody buys it, and then the studio closes. Yeah, look at the trifecta. Concord, Highguard, Marathon. And everything that came in between. Look at what's happened there. Look at how many jobs they've cut, because every single game that they put out that is DEI generated, Sweet Baby Inc. collaborated with, every single game, oh, we've got to cut jobs. Oh, we've got to cut down. Oh, we've got to cut down, because the games flop abysmally. And good. This is consumer selection. This is consumer selection. That consumers are saying, no, we don't want this shit. We're not going to pay for it. The companies push it, and then they go under. That's how this works. You vote with the wallet. Nothing beats the power of the dollar. Non-binary. I like that. I like that. The customers identified as being non-binary. Yeah, who would have thought that all these gaming companies would change customers' purchasality the way they did from consumer to non-binary? I like that.
happens is that people inside of HR departments and other types of administrative and influential positions at these companies use those positions in order to manufacture alarmism around the manufactured consensus. And I apologize, I'm using these words all the time, but I just want to make sure that I make it completely clear that none of this was organic and none of this was done because people wanted it. Nobody actually wanted any of this. This was forced on people, and it was done so by the unholy matrimony between mentally ill advertisers, or sorry, well, there's that too, mentally ill activists and cynical advertisers that are
and overarching shadow companies. We cannot forget that BlackRock was heavily involved in DEI. The CEO of BlackRock openly admitted that he pushed DEI onto the planet. Yeah, BlackRock and Vanguard. Like, he can talk about, the activists and the advertisers doing this, but there is the overarching, like, shadow company that facilitated this. And that was BlackRock and that was Vanguard pushing this shit globally. And they still are. The BlackRock and Vanguard are still pushing this shit globally. Make no mistake. They like the CEO of BlackRock went and said, "Yeah, this was a mistake. We're doing this to protect our we're trying to make money for our investors, and we went about it." Yeah, Larry Fink. Yeah, Larry Fink tried to pretend "Oh yeah, this was a bad idea," but they're still doing it without question. These two global conglomerates are absolutely still pulling the levers on this. And they are still pushing DEI, bridge, and everything woke through all of these companies without questions. Yeah, you can talk about Soros too. Soros is a toddler in the face of BlackRock and Vanguard. Soros is big, but compared to BlackRock and Vanguard, he is a fucking child.
Trying to cater to the lowest common denominator of capitalism and failing massively, by the way. You can see that with Bud Light. So anyway, all this has happened. These companies now are then taking away partnerships, they're taking away advertising, and they're changing the ways that they want their stuff broadcast and their stuff advertised. And that causes these companies to create a culture around basically playing it safe. They don't want to take any risks. They want to make sure that nobody does anything wrong. And they also don't want to attract the negative attention to the media class and to the activist class, because if you attract negative attention from them by not doing what they want, then they manufacture conspiracies. They try to create negative sentiment about you. And then they call you, nowadays, right? How many people are being called a Nazi? It's like, oh yeah, I'm not seeing your point of view. I guess I'm a Nazi now, right? That's the way that the world works.
And by the way, this is, I think, going to have an unintended consequence, what he was just talking about right there with the old mouth thing. I've talked about this before. When you have the SJRs and the leftists literally calling everybody a Nazi, a fascist, an istophobe, a PDF, when they're calling them every name in the book, particularly with the Nazi and racist part of it, number one, we know that they do this to paint you as a viable kill target. That's number one. They call you Nazi, fascist, racist, estophobe, whatever. They do this to mark you as a viable kill target. That's number one. But I think what the unintended consequence is going to happen is eventually people that they are classifying like this are going to get to a point, and I've said this before, okay, you want to keep calling me this, I'm going to show you what that really looks like. It's the whole thing of, you keep calling me a monster, okay, I'm going to be the fucking monster. And that's when shit is going to seriously kick off in a terrifying way. The minute a bunch of people from that side that is constantly being called a monster by the left, by the woke left like this, by the extremists, the minute that a whole mess of people decide to say, fuck it, you're going to call me this anyway, so I'm going to show you what a real monster fucking looks like, that's when, terrifyingly, that's when everything's going to go up for grabs. That's when we're going to see. It's only going to, as the saying goes, it's only going to take one bad day. It's only going to take one bad day for one or multiple someones to just go, you know what? Fuck it. They're going to call me this anyway, so I'm going to be the very thing that they call me. And that is going to be a terrifying day, that one bad day that pushes people too far.
Fundamentally, I think this was very effective. Now, anybody that plays Classic WoW knows that if you cast the crowd control on an opponent too many times, it begins to have what you would call diminishing returns. And I think at this point, it's basically just on the immunity stage. But for many, many years, this was an effective way of shutting down conversation. Sexist, racist, misogynist, like Nazi, far right, etc. All of these terms were used as buzzwords in order to allow that media class to pressure the advertising and the business class, to pressure the social media class, to pressure everybody else to adhere to their ideology and their language. And that's exactly how it happened. And I think that let's talk about, and obviously this just kind of got worse and worse and worse and worse.
God, yes.
And the reason why it got worse and worse and worse is actually something that's very much a parallel of what's happening with the Democratic Party right now. The Democratic Party is going through what I would say is basically a civil war. This is kind of similar to the Tea Party happening in like the late 2000s and maybe the early 2010s in the Republican Party. But I would view this to be slightly different because it's much more existential. You had people that were not.
It's much more existential and it's much more dangerous. What we're seeing when, God help me, we're delving into politics, but we have to. What we're seeing, this civil war that we're seeing in the Democratic Party, it's not a civil war. Let me make that abundantly clear. This is not a civil war. This is a takeover. This is 100% a takeover because the quote-unquote Democrats are not fighting back against these new quote-unquote democratic socialists, which is a code word for communist. The Democrats are not fighting back against the communists. They're pretending like they are. They are. There's maybe a handful of actual Democrats, like Fetterman for one. He's like the one Democrat that actually has a decent head on his shoulders. The rest of them are all like pretending like they're fighting back. They know they're not going to. They know that they're getting steamrolled. They're absolutely getting steamrolled, and they're welcoming it with open arms. And so the Democrats is going to, disappear before too long. Asman was referencing the Tea Party. The Tea Party was there for a moment, and then it went away. It never did any traction. The Communist Party, the Democrat Communist Party, oxymoron in and of itself, is not going away, and it's only gaining steam. And it's moving faster. It's moving even faster, and it is rapidly taking over the entire party. And the worst part is the Democrats that are really Democrats, they're just basically cucked little bitches at this point. They're doing nothing to stop it. They're pretending like, oh, don't do this. No, they're doing the fucking Willy Wonka thing. No, wait, stop, come back. And they're just letting themselves get absolutely steamrolled. And the entire party is being taken over by communists. And I'm telling you right now that the Democratic Party is going to become the Communist Party within the next couple years. That is going to happen because they are just completely obliterating them nonstop by lying, by blatantly lying, and because the general populace of the country has gotten abjectly more stupid. The population of the voting population of America has gotten fundamentally more stupid over the past 15 years. Like shockingly so. And there are a few select individuals that work behind the scenes that recognized this and said, ooh, we can use this. And so they basically picked and chose people that were heavy communist and wanted to basically destroy the country and basically inserted them into politics and let them run wild. And they are just demolishing everything in a path. And it's going to happen. There's at this point, the Democratic Party is going to go away. The Democratic Party is going to vanish in probably 2 years. It will be gone. They're gonna still have the Democrat name title in their name, but they're not going to be. But it's going to be gone in 2 years. Unless there is a major counteroffensive to stop it, that's the way it's going to happen. We are going to see an historic change in basically the parties that govern the U.S. Because alternatively speaking, my fear is that we are going to see on the Republican side, we are going to start seeing the rise of a, their version of extremes. I don't know what those might look like at this point, but that is going to be the counter because the current Republicans are basically weak-kneed fucksticks. Current Republican Party can't do fuck all. And so what's going to happen is you are going to see people that lean harder towards the right into a more extremist category. They're going to start being able to make noise and people are going to start listening to them and people are going to start voting for them. And we're going into an age of political extremism, even within our own government. Like you think we've been in political extremism before. You ain't seen shit yet. You haven't. You're gonna see basically the communist left, and you might very well see like I don't know what could be an extreme version of the right. I don't want to say like totalitarian or authoritarian because that could easily be the left, but you see what I'm saying. Is Christian nationalist? Yeah, maybe. Yeah, the right turns into like a Christian nationalist party as opposed to a Republican party. Or constitutionalist on steroids, maybe, I don't know. But that's the way we're going. We are going into an era in the United States of political extremism actually running the fucking government. And that's bad. That is a terrible thing to happen because you cannot have a government run by extremes. You know what happens when you get that? You get every fucking third world country on the map. Every third, like, look at the shit happening in South America. Look at the shit happening in the EU and the UK. That is what happens when you get a government run by extremes. And that, unfortunately, is the direction that we are going with the American government. It is becoming a two-party system, but a two-party system of extremes that is not going to be beneficial to literally fucking everybody.
Not really involved in any of these things because they cared about them. They were involved in these things because it made them feel good. And this is something that's becoming more and more obvious, is that many of these companies and many of these people are not really adopting these social causes.
Small says have 2A. I'm not gonna comment on that. Not now. Not now.
Out of any sort of like real genuine intention or real genuine care, they're adopting social causes as social accessories. They're using their pride flags, their Palestine flags, and their trans flags, or like their coexist bumper stickers. They're not using these as actual pieces of advocacy. They're using them as social accessories so they can signal to other people that they're a good person. So
no, they're using them as weapons. Let's be fucking real right now. They're using the pride flag, they're using the trans flag, they're using all these as weapons to basically gear up their side to attack and kill people that don't agree with them or imprison. That is what they're using. He's being very gentle in his language. I'm not going to be gentle. These flags are turning into symbols of hate and symbols of violence for people that honor those flags, basically giving them, legitimacy to hurt, to kill, and to imprison anyone that does not agree with them in their ideology. That's what the pride flag and all of its iterations have become. They're not symbols of rebellion. No, they're the exact opposite. They're symbols of oppression. They're in no way they're symbols of rebellion. They're not. Because they are in the mainstream. And they say, if you do not accept this, if you do not honor the flag, then you should either be killed or be imprisoned for life because you have offended our ideology, because you don't agree with us. And if you don't agree with us, then you are an enemy of the state. And so they have literally become a symbol of hate, oppression, and violence. And there's no getting around that. There's no way that they can say otherwise because it is fact. It is absolutely fact that people that, people that honor the flag, even those that pretend like that they're allies to the flag, if you don't agree with it, if you have a different opinion of it, even if even if you just have a different opinion that is not disagreeing with it or disliking it or despising it, but even if you have a different opinion that does not fall in lockstep with the mind virus the mind virus thought process, they want you either dead or in prison. Because you are a free thinker and they don't want free thinkers. They want good little zombies to honor the flag and basically allow them to corrupt the entire country, to destroy your children, and basically turn your life into a living fucking hell. That's what the flag now, that's what the pride flag in all of its iterations now means. And I'm telling you, every single gay and trans person that is actually gay and trans hates the flag now. Okay, that is a special kind of retardation to have the very people that this flag used to fly for hate it and hate everything it represents and hate everybody that calls themselves, quote, LGBT and the entire rest of the alphabet that no one gives a fuck about. That is a special kind of stupid to get the very people this once stood for to abandon it and say it's a symbol of hate now. Like, that tells you everything all you need to know.
What the point of that is that there actually is no real kind of end goal. There's no ideology, that there's no light at the end of this tunnel. There's no North Star that these people are working towards. And that's the reason why the ideology continues to self-radicalize. It's because it was never about ever doing something and achieving something and meeting a goal. It was manufacturing consent, enforcing that consent and that permission structure on the entire population, and then feeling like a good person for doing it. And that's the most important thing. It's not because of the people. It's not because of the people they're trying to help. It's because the main person they want to help is themselves, and they want to help themselves feel better. And that's the reason why it's become more and more radical. And I think that it was generally tolerable in 2014 to 2019. But COVID really sent it into a, pun intended, a fever pitch, right? And it really got a lot worse. And the reason why I think it got a lot worse is actually very simply because you had everybody staying inside, companies are spending infinitely more money, and I think obviously you had social unrest and everything else. And what happened is that these people just continued to self-radicalize, and because so many people were being involved and basically swept up in the movement, it accelerated the
If LGBT gets more weaponized, I'll flee to Russia where LGBT won't touch. Gamer, I got news for you. Oh, wait, you're talking. Well, okay, I see where you're going with that. But still, I got news for you. Russia ain't gonna be much better. Yeah, LGBT is not gonna touch Russia, but guess what? Russia's gonna touch you, and not in the fun way.
As so many people were being involved and basically swept up in the movement, it accelerated the progression of the movement to the point where you couldn't even say that there were two genders anymore. And I think this happened, the reason why it stopped actually wasn't that people got tired of it, it's because one person got tired of it, and that person was Elon Musk. I do think that it was a timeline shift when Elon Musk bought Twitter. I think that if Elon Musk had not bought Twitter, we would probably still be living with the COVID-era censorship, and it would probably be continuing to get worse and worse and worse, because those people...
Remember, Emery, you're a shill for Russia's mom. Gamer, Russia's mom sucks on my clitty all day long. She is my bitch, and never forget that.
People still control all the levers of power. They may be stupid, they may be delusional, they may be selfish, but they are very organized, and they also do have a decent understanding of political theory, and at least institutional capture to the extent that they can apply it and use it to their advantage. And I think that's commendable. I just wish they would do it.
And the left suddenly hated Elon after hailing him a hero of the left. Did they always hail Elon as a hero on the left? I don't remember the left hailing him as a hero even prior to him purchasing Twitter. Did they love him? Okay. Before he went to Texas? Okay. I'll take your word for that. Like, I was not following along in like the news on that, or how they, the zeitgeist of the feelings of the left back during that point. I was kind of like doing my own thing, and I wasn't paying attention to current events nearly as much as I do now. They loved Elon before he endorsed Trump. Okay. I will take your word for that. Hassan's kissing his ass for. Okay. I will take your word for that. Like I said, I have not really started seriously following current events until probably a few years ago. Primarily when I started streaming, that's when I really started to keep up with current events. So if you said that the left was loving him, they were calling him Tony Stark. Okay. Yeah, but again, notice the pattern. This is exactly what the left does. This is what they've done for years and years and years. The minute you step out of line and don't goose step to their beat, they will immediately try to devour you. Elon is fortunate enough that he's rich enough and doesn't give a fuck that he basically just said, I don't fucking care, and did his own thing and pushed forward and has basically become a savior of free speech online. So it's like, again, like what happened with Elon only proves exactly what I've been saying, is that they will always, if you step out of line even by a millimeter, they will try and devour you in a heartbeat, because that's how they operate. They literally are metaphorical cannibals when it comes to their ideology. If you don't follow the way they specifically want you, they will try to devour you to gain your power and use it for themselves.
That they can apply it and use it to their advantage. And I think that's commendable. I just wish they would do it to something that wasn't destructive. So the point that I'm making is that COVID, I think, accelerated all of it. Elon Musk buying Twitter was like a crack in the dam that unlocked basically everybody's freedom of speech. And you went from not being able to say that there were two genders to only talking about which race is the best race. And that's a really big change. The Overton window didn't shift, the entire building got bulldozed, and you built it somewhere else. So in the entire world, I think this was probably the biggest, or internet world, this was the biggest shift in terms of, like ideology, in terms of behavior and everything, is when Elon Musk ended up buying Twitter. So he buys Twitter, everybody can say whatever they want, and then also, at that point, Elon said, well, I don't need advertising, and that's the reason why Twitter, I think, has freedom of speech. The more that these companies allow advertising, the less freedom of speech that they will be allowed. And you could say that that's fair because companies don't want to deal with this kind of stuff and they want to be amoral. I understand that, but I think that we should also acknowledge that the genesis of all of this censorship is not simply social justice, it's actually just making money. And if it wasn't for capitalism, you'd still have people spam.
Well, think about it. The quote-unquote social justice warriors from back when, now the SJRs, are also a means of making money. Bearing in mind, these companies are making money off of the woke, off of the SJRs. Look at the Southern Poverty Legal Center. Look at how much money they made off of the SJRs, off of the activists. They are constantly they know that these dumb fucking activists will spend money on anything so long as you are promoting the ideology that they want to stand for, but that they pretend that they stand for. You want to talk about freeing Palestine? Okay, we'll sell you free Palestine flags. They'll buy those out of stock in a heartbeat. You want to do the trans flag or the pride flag? Okay, we're gonna buy those up. You want to do anything that we'll say you want to. We'll sell you, the protest posters. We'll pre-print 1,000 protest banners for you guys to take on some communist march through the center of New York City. They'll buy them up instantaneously. And then you have these companies that basically can profit off it, like you have at the Southern Poverty Legal Center, where they funded the KKK rallies specifically so they can get donations from organizations like BLM to support them. Same thing with the ADL. The ADL is funding opposition to what they can make money off of, so that if they fund their opposition, then the activists will come to them and they'll give them donations for them to fight against the bad guys. So it's like these companies are basically they're making money off of these activists because they're so brain dead that it's easy to do. They're so easy to fucking con by just saying, oh yes, I believe in current hot button thing today. Here's a product to represent that, and they'll buy it out of stock instantaneously because they're morons.
The N-word all the time. And how do I know that? Well, it's because every single website that isn't run based off of advertising and doesn't, depend on it, like 4chan, Twitter, or Rumble, for example, all of these places have people saying all kinds of crazy things.
Yeah.
So the moment that you give people a mask, they'll show you their true face. And I think that's also the reason why they want to use ways to identify people. This is why doxing is so effective. Doxing is also another effective way of doing things, and the reason why doxing is so effective is because doxing allows people to apply those consequences that they would previously apply to companies, to social media websites, which was a lot harder for them to do. Now all they have to do is achieve it with one individual person. And you see this also, the reversal of this with, for example, Charlie Kirk. You see people talking about like, oh, I'm glad Charlie Kirk died, and then they get fired from their job, and these people were saying like, well, this isn't fair, I don't agree with this. Well, that's too bad. You shouldn't have been doing it for the last 10 years.
Exactly.
So really what I think has happened is that now you have an environment where freedom of speech is more or less completely tolerated. And on top of it being completely tolerated, you have a shifting of the window of what is acceptable thought, the Overton window, that is happening faster and faster and faster. I think there's a force multiplier with this. And fundamentally, I wanted to let everybody understand and help everybody understand how these media companies and these activists.
Everything changed when Charlie died. No, I don't think everything changed. I think it refocused. Because when Charlie died, and because he died in because he was executed in such a public way, it basically was a signal flare. That was a signal flare to that side, to the left, that this is the way we can go about it. We can start doing this en masse now. We can start killing people because socially, even if it's not legally acceptable, socially it's acceptable. And to all of these people, because they are not sane, because they are so ideology captured, what feels good is more important than what is legal. And the execution of Charlie Kirk in a very public venue that was met with so many people online doing TikTok dances, celebrating, and so on and so forth with it. Like, yeah, some people got fired from their jobs because they were making TikTok dances about it, or they were celebrating and saying, yeah, more's coming, and so on and so forth. Yeah, some people died. The vast majority didn't, and the vast majority got gassed up by their quote unquote peers. And so that basically caused a shift in that, the woke side saying, oh, so shooting someone who doesn't agree with us and killing them is not only acceptable, it's going to get me accolades and clout, which to these people, the accolades and clout is more important than whether or not something is legal. Even if they go to prison, in the moment, they're not going to care. In their head, they're thinking, oh, I'm not going to go to prison because this is popular. I'm supported by the internet, so obviously I'm not going to go to prison. And so they're going to do it. It's why you saw the thing with the people who shot that ICE officer. That's part of it. That's like that stemmed from what happened with Charlie Kirk is, oh, it's now acceptable to attack people that don't agree with me in a public spectacle because it is sociologically accepted and encouraged by my side. And these people are because they're basically a part of a cult, they are brainwashed and thinking, I should do this to better myself. It's practically Scientology. You want to better yourself in the cult? You want to quote unquote raise the social ladder or climb the social ladder within this cult? Well, you need to do something heinous. You need to kill opposition. You need to attack ICE officers. You need to attempt to kill law enforcement that are not letting you do whatever the fuck you want to do. That's basically what happened with Charlie Kirk. Is it elevated to the point where violence against your opposition is not only acceptable but encouraged?
Are pressuring these companies to pressure other companies, news websites, social media websites, and everything else in between into making it to where you're not able to have freedom of speech. That is the main reason why it's happening. You're not losing your freedom of speech because of activists directly. You're losing it because of advertisers directly and activists indirectly that are working through as a tertiary source actually the media apparatus that they have ideologically captured. Whether this is video games journalism, whether it's real journalism, whether it's, well, unfortunately, basically any type of media that's mainstream to begin with. And you're starting to see this receding. And I think it's almost pretty.
Yeah, the 4 people recently jailed and convicted. That's exactly what I was referencing. That is. Oh, wait, you're talking about in the UK. That's okay. You're talking about the activist that broke into that place in the UK and attacked one of the officers and one of the guards with a sledgehammer. Okay, yeah, I see what you're talking about.
Much gone. I think that you're going to need probably 5 more years of cultural institutional change. And in terms of the very ingrained things like education, corporate environment, corporate policy, and let's not even get into the legal system in which these ideologies are codified into law.
Yeah, and you're right. Yeah, the whole thing about with George Takei and Will Wheaton going and saying, basically attacking The Rock online because The Rock said he's not going to be political anymore. And you've got these 2 SJR fucksticks that basically said, you're not going to be political? Well, you're dead to us. We hate you. Because he said he deliberately wants to be apolitical. That's where we're at. Is, that you have to be political or basically the left wants to kill you. If you are someone in the public eye and you're like, I don't want to fuck with the political shit, those on the left in the public eye will go, well, you're dead to me and you should be killed. That's where we're at this point.
It will take a while to actually undo all of this, but we're very well on the path to that. And I wanted to.
No, we're not. No, we're not. I have to disagree with Asmgul on this. No, we're not on the path to this. We most certainly are not. That is wishful thinking on his part. We're getting worse with it. We're not on a path. We basically got Elon Musk and Twitter as the bastion of free speech right now, and that's about it. And yeah, people can say what they think now, but we are not on the path to correction. Not by a long shot. We're on a path of the exact opposite at this point. We've got, like I said, we've got communism starting to take over government. We have got these activists that are basically achieving positions of power or the ears of people in power that are basically directing them to attack their enemies. This is not even close to getting better. Not by a long shot. Yeah, we have our small little oases, like to a degree, social media. Not much. I mean, granted, I can't, I have to be careful about what I post on YouTube these days. But it's like Twitter is basically the one place where you can kind of say what you feel. That's it. So no, this is something I have to disagree with. I disagreed with him on this before when he was saying like, oh, what's happening with the communists taking positions of authority within the government. Oh yeah, this is gonna be great. They're gonna be easy to run against. Like me and Kirsche both are like, no. This is not the case. This is them steamrolling through government, and they are going to be achieving more and more positions of power, and they're going to have more and more authority over the populace and be able to make more and more decisions. So, no, it's not getting better. It's not.
Show people kind of this cause and effect, because I think that a lot of people haven't really necessarily looked at it, and they're facing they're focusing their anger at these, like weird social justice warriors on the internet. And I think that go ahead, be my guest, right? Do whatever you want to do. But those people are not fundamentally the ones that are making this happen. The ones that are fundamentally making it happen are the companies that are putting pressure on the websites, on the businesses, everything in order to fulfill and conform to their ideology.
And it's not just the companies putting pressure on the website. Don't forget, we saw this with the payment processors. They're also trying to use money against people. Don't remember the whole shitstorm that happened with Massive Visa and MasterCard, basically killing entire companies because they would refuse to do payment processing for them because they considered those companies a quote unquote threat to the brand, or it would not look good for their brand. And so they said, we're not going to do payment processing for you anymore, and it shut the entire business down. We've seen games come off of Steam because the payment processor said, we're not going to process your payment for you if you release this game on Steam. So it's not just advertisers, it's literally the people holding the levers of money itself that are doing this.
And I do believe this is a situation that's kind of like nuclear weapons, for example. You cannot afford to not play the game. I think that if you want to control and you want to not have institutional capture, you have to engage in institutional capture. There is not a world where this weapon and this tool is not used. There's only a weapon where it's either you using it or it being used against you. And so my advocacy and my ask for everybody is that when you see people that are pushing for this kind of ideology, especially whenever they're doing it through vectors of commercial aspects, like, for example, advertising, you have to push back 10 times as hard. Because if these commercial places realize that these things are losing money, you're going to start seeing all of these people, their entire power structure completely evaporate. Because their power structure is actually maintained and enforced by capitalism. And it's not just by capitalism. I'm a big capitalism enjoyer, but I would say it is by bad faith, unintelligent, uninformed capitalism that is being done by the lowest common denominator. And those are the people that you really should be looking at as your enemy. Those are your enemies, because those are the ones that are cutting the checks, that are forcing the ideologies, and they're doing it from the top down. And yes, they're being influenced by the bottom, but it's the top that is making this decision, and it's these people that are fundamentally pulling the levers of power and changing things institutionally and making it to where you don't have a voice. And the reason why I want to make this video is that I think that a lot of times people don't really understand that. They don't see how these things have manifested, and they don't understand, they can't construct and deconstruct how all of this has come together. I've been on the internet for 25 years. I've seen all of this happen myself. I'd be curious to hear what other people's comments are in the, in the comment section. But fundamentally, I think that we really do have to be more outspoken. I think that with video games, the last thing I want to talk about is that with video games, I think that we've done an incredibly great job. You have many of these different companies that are going back to McDonald's. They're going back to being Applebee's servers.
This is true.
And,
this is true.
No shade to any of the people that do those jobs, but fundamentally, they're simply not, much of a creative job as making a video game. And I really think that what you have to have happen is you have to have even more of these points on the graph in order to have companies be able to see that there's a very clear line. And I think that's beginning to happen. If you look at, for example, a lot of the new video games, you see a lot less ideology.
He's right about the video games. That is the one point where we are seeing improvements. We are seeing an improvement in this space with video games, because with the video game industry, they can't function without customer money. And the customers have with video games, they're not beholden to advertisers like basically mainstream media is. Mainstream media is beholden to advertising. Video games are not. Video games depend upon customers directly paying them. So with the video game industry, we are seeing this shift because people were able to vote with their wallets. We're seeing studios shutting down. We're seeing studios slashing their workforce to the bone. And it is happening. But again, you have to look at the avenue in which these companies make their money. All the ones that are not slowing down are the ones that basically are taking in advertiser money. The ones where it's paid, where they're receiving money directly from the public, they're the ones that are making a change faster. So the solution, what is the solution is? Well, the solution might be that if you have, if granted, this is a Herculean task that I legit don't know if it's even possible. But basically, you look for what advertisers are advertising on certain spaces. And if if that advertiser is trying to push an ideological agenda like this, then you basically boycott the product or service that is using this advertiser. Again, that is a Herculean task. I don't even know if it's even possible, because you're talking about getting millions upon millions of people to agree to do something, and that is like trying to herd fucking cats. But that, when it comes to how do you push back against the advertisers that are influencing media companies, that's how you would do it. Is, okay, a media company is going to basically have this advertiser, which is pushing DEI woke agendas and fostering an even greater, division in the country, okay, you do not watch that. You do not watch that program. You do not watch that news media. Because bear in mind, they like if they they're what advertisers will pay to these news media companies is very much dependent upon their viewership numbers. Like they do, like news media does catalog what their viewership is. So if their viewership goes through the fucking floor because people boycott watching it because they are being paid by advertisers that push these ideologies, then the news media company will go, well, okay, we obviously can't be paid by these people. We'll go to a different advertiser instead, one that does. And if they choose one that doesn't push, then okay, we'll come back. Like it's a little twisty-turny, and again, it's a Herculean effort that, realistically speaking, won't work. But this is in a perfect world. This is how you would contend against this advertising virus that is infecting media. Is any media source that allows itself to be, that allows X company that is pushing agenda to advertise on its platform, you immediately boycott the platform. And then that platform will go, okay, we're not actually making money anymore. We've got to go to a different advertiser that our customer base will actually like, or our viewer base will actually like. That would be the dream solution for this problem, which again, I fully recognize it is a dream solution because you're not going to get that many people to cooperate in this regard.
Being imposed into these video games, and I think that you're starting to see it with movies as well, especially whenever you have movie after movie that prioritizes
The
identity
impressive
politics.
part is how they convinced investors to throw billions down the drain over and over again till bankruptcy over a message. Investors don't seem that bright.
If you're talking about video games, I don't know. When we're talking about into video games, well, any entertainment, well, video games are the only ones that basically are going into bankruptcy. Mainstream media and popular media hasn't gone into bankruptcy. It's only the video game industry that has seen bankruptcy and development studio shutdowns, and it's probably because they don't actually have that many investors. When it comes to like news media, mainstream TV, they're not going into bankruptcy. That's the ever-loving point. Look at Disney. Look at Paramount. Look at the garbage that look at WB. Look at the shit that they've been putting out. They've been putting out bomb after bomb after bomb after bomb, both in TV and big screen. But they're not bankrupt. They're still going. WB is being sold. Okay, so it's being sold. And because it's being sold, the stock price is going to go up and the investors are going to be happy. Anytime a major company like that is sold, the stock price goes up, the investors are happy because that's all the shareholders give a shit about. They just care if they're making money. And so even if the studio is performing horribly, and then and the stock goes down, and so they have to sell. Once they sell, that stock price goes back up. The investors are making money again, and the investors are happy, and that's all they care about. Like we have not actually seen, and you're saying an industry titan going bankrupt in under 10 years. Like none of these entertainment businesses have gone bankrupt. None of the news media have gone bankrupt. None of the Hollywood studios, they have not gone bankrupt. They've been sold off and they've been swapped around back and forth, but they haven't gone bankrupt because they keep getting bailouts. Sure, but it doesn't matter the avenue of why they are not going bankrupt. So why should the investors care? The investors know they're going to get bailed out. They're still going to make their money. So who fucking cares? Until one of these studios legit goes bankrupt and goes away, that's going to be the canary in the coal mine to these people. Like, oh shit, we're not invincible and we're not untouchable like we've thought for decades. That's what it's going to take. Not simply a sale to another studio or something like that, because that won't send the message. Just getting sold to another studio, that means fuck all. But actually going bankrupt and going away, that sends a message. If a studio actually loses enough money that it can't even get sold and it goes bankrupt, that's when that's when the public will finally been able to send a message. We don't want this and we're not going to pay for it. Transferring from studio to studio doesn't matter. They're still getting money. They're still putting out shit. So it's not sending the message.
Ideology or some other form of message over actually appealing to their customers. And the best way that you can show people that that is a bad idea, there are two things. Number one, vote with your wallet. And number two, vote with your voice. Tell people the way that you feel, express yourself, and do it loudly. Because if you do it louder than other people, then people are going to listen to you instead. This isn't a world where you can just abstain. This isn't a world where you can just say, well, I'm just simply not going to do that because I don't agree with that. If you don't do it, they'll do it to you. And that's my real...
And they'll do it worse.
I understand this. And I understand it might be a cynical pill to swallow. And I get that. I understand that. But I think that it's true. And if you don't think it's true, just wait and see, pay attention, listen, and just look around. And I think that you'll begin to realize that that's really the path forward. So I wanted to explain and talk about that. I hope you guys all watched and enjoyed it. And I'm curious to hear what people's comments are in the comment section below. So thanks all for watching. I'll see you tomorrow. Peace.
Yeah. It's, we're, yeah. That's not, that's all I can say. It's just, yeah. We're in a, we're in a pivotal point in world history. We are, this is not, we're at a point, not only just America's history, we are at a pivotal moment in world history. Like what we have been seeing for the last 20 years is going to be written in history books. This will, 50 years down the line, 100 years down the line, this time in our lives right now, we will be in history books, generally speaking. They will talk about this massive division of people all throughout the world. And I don't know how it's going to end. I do not know how this is going to end. I wish I could be, I wish I could be happy, and I wish I could give you some sage or comforting advice of how things are going to conclude. But the reality is, I don't know. I legitimately don't know. The only thing I can say is I'm here, you're here, and we just have to keep going. We just have to keep going and try to maintain sanity in a world that has been at a rapid pace going very fucking insane.
Ember burns bright.